Welcome back to Water Finance and Management Conversations. I'm your host, Andrew Farr, Managing Editor of Water Finance and Management. Our topic of discussion today is capital planning, and our guest is Joly, founder of Waterworth. We had JP on the program last year, and now he's back today to talk through some typical pain points that water and sewer systems are facing when it comes to capital planning, budgeting, when it comes to forecasting their future revenue needs. These are, of course, all important topics of discussion right now. So JP, it's great to have you back with us today.
Thanks, Andrew. It's great to be back with you.
So JP, you have more than 15 years of experience working with water suppliers and local governments on asset management, long-term financial planning, utility rate setting. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, what are you seeing as far as utility systems? Are they taking a more proactive approach to capital planning and looking long-term and, I guess, willing to raise rates and those sorts of things? Or are you still seeing kind of a reactive approach to capital planning? What are some of your general thoughts on how water and sewer systems are kind of approaching that?
Andrew, I think there's a shift happening. When we engage with new customers, we usually find that they're in that stage where they really do want to do that long-term outlook. They really want to be more proactive. So we're finding that the needle is moving in that direction. Of course, we know there's still a pretty large amount of infrastructure liability out in North America, not just in water and wastewater, but in all sorts of other municipal service areas. So there's a pretty big hill to climb, but I think that the sentiment is shifting, and municipalities and their managers are wanting to do more of the proactive thing. We did a panel on drought, how financial planning can help prepare for drought, and we did a poll, and about 80% of the attendees reported that they are either prepared or somewhat prepared financially for dealing with drought. So there's still a small number that aren't, but that's just one indication that tells me that there's some good planning going on out there.
Yeah, and so what are some of those typical pain points that you're seeing, some of those common challenges that your utility managers and finance officers are having? Is it finding the money? Are there internal communications challenges with governing boards and commissions and getting rate approvals and things of that nature? What are some of those consistent challenges you're seeing?
I see there being four key challenges that these municipalities are facing. And as you know, we wrote a white paper on the topic just recently. And the challenges go like this. First of all, capital planning, especially in the utility business, is hard to do because there's so much going on, and the assets are buried deep in the ground, so they're out of sight, out of mind, and it takes a lot of effort and time to plan properly for the replacement of these long living assets. So that's thing one. Secondly, we find that the tools that are available for doing this kind of planning aren't the traditional tools have issues. So, and they fall into two categories. Either, rate consultants are brought in to kind of look at what's going on and give a report that advises on what to do with rates, or you might want to use Microsoft Excel and kind of do some of your own modeling. And Excel comes with its own issues and pitfalls. So the tools aren't that great. The third thing is there's lots of moving parts. So there's usually more than one solution to a problem, or variations on the solution. When you're thinking about, are you going to use cash and reserves? Are you going to borrow? Are you going to maybe change the timing of some other projects to make room for new ones that are more important? And throughout it all, how do those impact rates? And can you increase rates aggressively or not? And how might that all impact your ability to borrow? So, managers have to kind of look at all this, and when you move one of the parts, another one might move, kind of move aside. And so it's challenging to balance these things. And the fourth challenge is, as you put it, is the communication. So with all this complexity, how do you bring a simple, concise story to council that explains the situation in a most efficient way that gets everybody sort of nodding their heads and on board with understanding the problem, so they can effectively and efficiently get to, making the decisions that lead to the solutions, the approvals for what needs to be done. So challenging to do the planning, a lot of effort required. The tools aren't great, they're antiquated. There's lots of moving parts, and communicating is hard to do if you don't have the right approach to it.
So there are some new tools emerging in the industry, and it seems like that's happening really across the board in the water industry with regards to a lot of different areas, and of course now including financial planning. So JP, can you walk us through any interesting utility examples that you've heard of, or that Waterworth's been involved in, that really exemplify financial modeling and forecasting revenue needs, and tools that are helping utilities kind of assist in capital planning and in those areas?
So, okay, here's an example. One of our customers is Gypsum, Colorado, and they're right in the midst of needing to do some very, very significant upgrades to their wastewater plant, new regulations, and that whole stuff. And we're looking at $50 to $60 million for a community about, I think they're about 25,000 population, and planning for something that big, if they had started planning 20 years ago, would be a different story. But this huge amount of work is likely going to need some borrowing, and it's going to need some very significant increases to their rates, probably tripling or quadrupling their rates in the coming 10 years. And so Waterworth is helping to kind of smooth that path, and getting the Jim, who's the assistant town manager who I'm working with there, getting him to see that he can plan by increasing rates a little more lightly in early years, while buying some time before even beginning to put the shovels in the ground for the project. So financial modeling can help kind of put that sort of an approach together, where you can convince everybody that we got to get some money in early, even if we're not doing anything with the money yet. We're just building up some of this early cash to help keep our financial stability up, and help get to the point where we can borrow the rest of the money and do the rest of the project. So quite complex, but he's our tool is helping him to do that. Another example is so we're working with Moline in Illinois, and as you know, Illinois just recently had a new ruling on copper and lead, and so that's going to change things for probably all the municipalities in Illinois, who now have a new infrastructure cost that they had not planned for initially. So this is another example of where whatever plans were in place before, now with working with Moline, we can use Waterworth to figure out how we're going to position this new spending within the financial reality of that city. And let me give you one last example. We're working with Moapa Valley in Nevada, and they've been a customer of ours for probably coming on 5 years now. And in the early years, Moapa Valley had a difficult time getting any rates approved with the board. It was just a difficult process. And since over these past 5 years, they've reached a point where the board has become not only familiar with the outputs of our tool, but they begin to yearn for them. And to the point where they know what to expect. They know what the graphs and charts look like, and they know how the process goes, right? So they have some discussion around, here's the work that we need to do, and then right away they get to the punchline of, okay, what does this mean for rates? And they can quickly and very efficiently have that conversation and get past, get those rate increases passed, and move on to other things. And I just found out recently that we're working with Joe, who's the general manager at Moapa Valley Water, and he went into a board meeting and he was asking for a 3% rate increase. And the board looked carefully and hard at the model, and in the end they approved a 4%. And that's the first time that I came across something like that. But you see now how a board Waterworth has provided sufficient insight into this board that they're looking far enough ahead that they are giving the water utility a little bit more cash ahead of time than what the general manager was even asking for. So that was an interesting story. And there's, these are classic types of things that we come across as we work with our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really great examples, and would love to get some more information on each of those and talk a little bit more in depth. This is obviously a complex challenge, and I think we're going to be talking more about it, JP, and especially amid all the other challenges utilities are dealing with. I mean, you mentioned drought, lead and copper rule regulations coming down, so there's certainly a lot going on, and obviously optimizing capital planning is going to be continue to be really important. JP, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate you taking some time, and it's been great getting your insights on some of these issues. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Andrew. I like talking with you about these things.
All right, and we'll leave it right there. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll catch you next time on Water Finance Management Conversations. Take care. For more information on Waterworth, visit waterworth.net. And subscribe to Water Finance and Management's YouTube page and visit waterfm.com for the latest water utility news and insights.